And I also wish to appreciate our substantive speaker.
Can you just consult in low tones? Majority Leader, please guide the team to consult in low tones. Proceed, Senator Asige.
Speaker, I must begin by appreciating our substantive speaker for steering us so well through this very sensitive subject matter. He has done a very good job and we thank him. The gig is up, Speaker. The emperor has no clothes. Speaker, I wish to lay the foundation of my contribution in the famous play titled King Lear by William Shakespeare. Widely regarded as Shakespeare's finest work, King Lear is an allegory that illustrates a sharp fall from grace from a king who is drunk with pride, with ego, the desperate need for control and praise, who makes a series of mistakes by listening to his immoral eldest two daughters and bad advisors, who exist only to praise him for their own personal gain. Though caring for him greatly and always wanting the best for him, Speaker, King Lear chooses to reject his youngest daughter, Cordelia, because she refuses to flatter or feed his ego like the others, by telling him the truth, even at the risk of her losing her inheritance. Shakespeare's motif revolves around King Lear's fall into error and Machiavellian ways, which we see when he arrogantly declares that he has ultimate power and can choose to ignore his subjects whenever he is pleased with them. His inability to see the truth leads him to lose power, wealth, his senses, his truest daughter Cordelia, and ultimately his own life. Speaker, the entire internet was screaming during Sunday night's interview with the president. Don't mean to anthropomorphize, but TV screens across the country would have turned themselves off themselves if they could, after what is said to have been a train wreck of a conversation from start to finish that left the emperor naked. I must acknowledge, however, the decision by the president to have a 2-hour unscripted sit-down, because seldom do African heads of state risk putting themselves in unpredictable, uncontrolled environments like that. With our majority leader setting the tone through this motion, let the Senate be your Cordelia, Mr. President. You are a leader in the service industry, and I was told just last night that the two most vital pillars in the service industry are perception and experience. And for such a delicate subject matter, you at the very least need a stellar crisis communications team, because your words kept fueling the fire last week. I also want to remind the president that it's not about him. It's not personal. We didn't name it Kenya Kwanza. That wasn't us. Kenya Kwanza. Not Kwanza the noun, Speaker, but Kwanza the adjective. And instead of putting Kenya first, your presidency has put Machiavellianism first, like King Lear, when all that us young people wanted was for you to put Kenya first. Like a performance review of sorts, Speaker, we expected that on his third attempt to address us on Sunday night, he would come with details, with data, definitives, strategies, but it was still so vague, so non-committal, so uninformed. It felt dismissive and disconnected. Speaker, the president went on national television without a clue of what has been happening in the country that he believes he governs. Was the deputy president right in his address last week as well, that his boss may not know all that is going on in the country? How many people are in custody, he was asked. He replied, I have a ballpark figure from the police that they have enough people. What do you say to the youth who say yours is not a listening government, he was asked. He said, I have 4 things: housing jobs, digital jobs, export of labor, manufacturing. You believed barely 1.5 years ago that you could run the country on 2.9 trillion. In a few months, you went to Parliament and requested 3.6 trillion. This year, you went to Parliament and requested 4.2 trillion. And what do they see in return? They see extravagance in government, he was told. He replied, let me tell you the following. Today, universities were almost closed because of debts of 60 billion shillings. I have enhanced their budget by 40 billion shillings because education, to me, is the greatest equalizer. Speaker, This went on and on and on. Tone deaf and not answering what Kenyans really wanted to hear from the president. Not only were shots fired at innocent young protesters last week, Speaker, but it seems in this interview we also saw shots fired at his cabinet, his deputy president, and even the communications team caught astray. So what are some solutions? Speaker, in response to austerity measures as directed by this motion, the president has on record made pronouncements of what he plans to do. Young people do not want more dialogue or multi-sectoral groups before he actions what he has already committed to do. In his Wednesday, 26th of June press conference, the president committed to do the following. 1, reduce expenditure, starting with the executive office of the president and extending it to the entire executive arm of government. 2, operational expenditure in the presidency be reduced to remove all allocations for the confidential vote, reduce travel budgets, hospitality, and purchase all motor vehicles and renovations, as well as other expenditures. Number 3, Parliament, the judiciary, and county governments working with the National Treasury also undertake budget cuts. This clearly shows, Speaker, that the president knows exactly what he needs to do and precisely what he needs to focus on. Get rid of corruption, get rid of wastage, get rid of breaching court orders, get rid of misdirective and duplicative pots of money like CDF, which completely usurp the true function of a legislator. Speaker, members of parliament are supposed to legislate and ministries are supposed to implement. No parliamentarian should have a CDF allocation because our role is simple: to represent, to oversight, and legislate. We have no business building markets and roads and hospitals. Get rid of CDF that bastardizes the role of a member of parliament. We also want a repeal of other unconstitutional legislations since this government came into power. And we want leaders to be leaders, Speaker, not leaders to be dealers.